Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me, always dissecting X-Men 97, is Ron. How are you, Ron?
I'm doing good, man. It's kind of tough to have a bad day on Wednesdays at this point, at least for the next few weeks here, for as long as we have this show. But yeah, things have been good. We've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. Some news that just dropped seconds before we started recording this. So excited to kind of dive into all of it with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. It's before we get into X-Men 97, there was a little bit of news that broke right before we started recording, maybe like 30 minutes before we started recording. Casting news. So we'll talk about it now and not, have a. It doesn't really warrant a full episode by itself. But Deadline reported in an exclusive that the Fantastic Four has found their Silver Surfer, and it is Julia Garner who is playing a Shala Bal version of Silver Surfer, which is in comics the wife of the usual Silver Surfer, though at times she's also been a Silver Surfer. Um, yeah, so this broke like right before. I know we had heard so many rumors about them having a female Herald of Galactus before we even got the main cast. So interesting that turned out to be true. And it makes me wonder if we're going to get that Galactus casting very soon then too, because there was rumors about that going around for quite a bit
Mm-hmm.
of time. Who was it? Javier
Bardem.
Bardem
Mm-hmm.
was linked for a while. But
Banderas
Ron,
was
just
too, but that kind of fell off the wayside. Antonio
who
Banderas.
was? Oh,
Antonio,
that's right.
yeah, he
That's
was
right.
like the original one, and then it was Bardem kind of took over all the rumor mill.
Yeah. So give me your first thoughts here on Shala Bal being our Silver Surfer here in the MCU.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it is the wife of Norin Rad. They're not going the Juno route, which is just kind of another woman Silver Surfer altogether. Um, I still think this is something we're missing a little bit of context for because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of different iterations of Shalabal. There's iterations where it's her and Norin together as sort of twin heralds of Galactus, not actually twins. That would be weird. But there's an iteration in the main 616, obviously, where she's just more like she's Norin's wife, and there's all this kind of convoluted story with Mephisto and Doctor Doom, and they go down this whole like rabbit hole with it. So we're missing some context in terms of that, in terms of how much they'll be adapting from the plethora of source material they have with this. I'm going under the assumption right now that it's just going to be basically the same origin story of Silver Surfer that we've kind of come to know over the years, with a clean swap. The only difference will be that instead of Norin Rad making the deal with Galactus, it'll be Shalabal. So with that said, if that is the way they go, which, like I said, I'm kind of assuming that's going to be the route at this point, my first reaction was like, I don't even want to say bummed, but as somebody who very much enjoys Norrin Rad in the comics, he's one of my favorite characters to not wear an X on their chest. My first reaction was like, I kind of wanted to see him. But then when you kind of think on it for a second, there's really nothing about the character Silver Surfer that requires it to be a guy. You know what I mean? The coolest thing about Silver Surfer is the story, but there's nothing about his story that says he has to be a guy. So if we're talking just character designs, it's basically one of, if not the most non-binary characters in comics. It's just a silver person. So it's one of those things that if you're a Norrin Rad fan like me, your initial reaction is probably going to be like, oh, man. But when you really think about it for a second, especially because the person they cast is a great actress. I've seen her. I didn't watch all of Ozark, but I saw enough of it. She's one of the best parts of the show. I definitely think she has the look to play Surfer. Shave that head, and she's definitely got the look. So I'm going into it excited. I think it'll be a cool take on the character. And yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I don't really know enough about this character. Like I know Silver Surfer themselves and all that, but like this version of Silver Surfer wasn't really aware of that that much did appear in like 1968 as
Mhm.
I guess just herself, right? So she was in issues number 1 of Silver Surfer, but I don't know like when they made her the a herald as well. Does she look exactly like Silver Surfer when she is a herald as well, or is
Mhm.
she?
Yeah, just got longer hair. So yeah, yeah, they might not even. I take back the shave head comment because she has kind of long, like flowy hair, which I'd
Yeah,
imagine maybe they'll just shave her head anyway and kind of do all that in CG, or not shave her head, but put the bald cap on. You know what I mean? And just kind of CG the sort of flowy silver hair in. Maybe they'll do that way.
yeah. Um, so I don't have too much to think about it. I like Silver Surfer a lot. Like you said, it's not really something that has to be a guy. Um, and this is going to sound awful, I guess, but the only thing I'm dreading now is just the reaction online,
It's
and
already
it's like
starting.
I
Already
know
starting.
it's so like part of me is like, Disney and Marvel are going to make those decisions without worrying about the blowback, right?
Mhm.
They don't care. They're going to do what they think is best. They're going to hire the best actor.
We just saw
That's
that
all
with
that.
their ruling on the board today. That they
Yes, that's all that matters, right? Like they're going to get the best actor. Great.
yeah.
Um, but like part of me is like, like just for controversy's sake, like
Mhm.
let's not, right?
It's
But
yeah, it's
I
like
know
just you
that's
don't want to
not,
hear it. Yeah.
yeah, that's not the way to go about it either, because it's just gonna be everything that they're gonna. I'm sure YouTubers are coming up with thumbnails right now that are just
Oh
the
God.
worst thing you've ever seen,
Hmm.
um, and how this is bad and how it's going to, MCU, all that kind of stuff is what's going to be the prevailing thing. Not to anybody on like in reality.
No.
Anybody in reality is just gonna be like, okay, whatever. Some people are not even gonna read this article. They're gonna show up to the movie not knowing it's a female
Yeah.
Silver Surfer. But then the hardcore people that are able to just somehow farm engagement and farm money from uh being like getting enough followers to have ads on Twitter and on YouTube and all that kind of crap that are just going to constantly be churning out the same things we hear about every single movie nowadays. And it is just to the point where it's really exhausting. And I am just, it's like we know what's going to happen
Hmm.
anytime a main character, not even the main character, a main character is a woman, people lose their crap. For some reason I don't understand, when classic movies in the past have had female protagonists that these people like I've brought up Alien in the past. People like that movie. Nowadays they would throw a fit over it.
Hmm.
They'd go, "Why could it be John? It couldn't be a guy named John." Like that's what they would be going with, and it's just absolutely infuriating that it's just like clickbait, it's engagement bait, all that kind of crap. And I'm just over it. And so I'm for it. Let's see what they do. But this is just going to dominate the conversation for the next year plus. I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really unfortunate that you can make a genuine good living in this country off of that, off of just being negative online and appealing to the lowest common denominator in terms of intelligence and progressiveness. It's one of those things that we've just got to kind of accept at this point. Unfortunately, it doesn't even like nothing that we ever say or do is going to change those people's minds at this point. We've been trying for a decade now, and it's only gotten worse. So it's one of those things we're just going to have to, all of us collectively, as not just me and you, not just comic book fans, people with actual functioning brains in their head, are just going to kind of have to drown out and do whatever you
Yeah,
got to do to
wade
get,
through it. You
yeah,
got to
get,
wade through it while
uh,
you're looking to see who to watch, or
mm,
so you can always watch us because we're not usually pulling that. So
yeah.
Um, yeah, but this film's supposed to still launch in July. They haven't started filming yet. They're supposed to start filming, I believe, in July,
Hmm. Yep.
somewhere around there. So they'll have a year. I know some people think that means it'll get pushed. Rise of Skywalker was like finishing filming in February of 2023 not 2023. Wow.
Whoa.
Of 2019, and it came out in December of 2019. So like they're, and I think the effects in Rise of Skywalker look great. So it's not even
Yeah.
like rushed effects or anything. So it's a really real possibility this still hits July, until Marvel says otherwise
Mhm.
at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. We haven't seen anything that would make me believe it's going to be pushed.
Yeah, I just know there's a lot of people speculating
Mm.
it's going to get pushed.
Mm.
Whether we talked about before, whether it's because of Superman or whether because of filming,
Mhm.
people have been kind of thinking it may not release then, but I'm thinking it's releasing then.
Same.
All right, I guess we can transition to X-Men 97.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we had episode 4, Motendo, and Life Death Part 1, as it went very SpongeBob on us and gave us 2 like 11-minute segments with their own titles. This was directed by Chase Conley, written by Beau, DeMayo, and Charley Feldman, who also wrote Fire Made Flesh. Both of them wrote Fire Made Flesh, and Chase Conley directed Mutant Liberation Begins. This premiered April 3rd, 2024 on Disney Plus. Let me see if I can find this Disney Plus synopsis real quick. I didn't even read it before I watched it, but
Yeah.
sometimes
No.
it can range. Sometimes it can range from like Mandalorian and Grogu go on
Mhm.
a hunt, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay. And then other times it'll be like, I was just recording one for our Clone Wars one, and it literally was like, Padme investigates the death of this person, and you're like, well, they spoiled who dies in this episode. It was weird.
Oh, God, I
Okay,
love it.
here's the synopsis. Jubilee must relive the X-Men's greatest adventures when she's transported into a 16-bit video game. So they actually only had a little description about the first part. They didn't really mention life death in that one.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, surprising to see. I guess they didn't really want to give too much away though, because we did get some interesting, not spoilery bits, but just kind of reveals throughout the first half of Life Death there. But this episode was obviously a lot of fun. It was sort of the pinnacle of the '90s aesthetic that they've been going for so far. With the video games and all that stuff. I mean, just chef's kiss. Who didn't grow up playing that exact game in the arcade, when we were 8, 9 years, or even less than that? God.
Well, a lot of people nowadays
Yeah.
grow with their iPhones.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was a great episode. I guess just to kind of give the general thoughts. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier this week exactly about like Jubilee in terms of like, I don't know, she isn't really one who has like done much to translate over so far into the 97 show. It's just been very fireworks out of the fingers and not really a whole lot more going on. And to see her kind of have this sort of coming into age, growing up thing with her birthday, and maybe even got some cool new powers. I'm not quite sure what that was there when she held her older version's hand and they kind of did that weird little, I don't know if you call it a fusion thing or whatever, but I was very much hoping that they would kind of level up Jubilee at some point throughout this season. And I hope that the powers that we saw in that game are going to translate out of game, quote unquote, in the show. Kind of a weird meta thing there. In terms of the life death, it was nothing that blew comic fans away. It was very kind of accurate to what we've seen there. We got kind of a cool ending with Adversary that we'll go into a little bit too. A couple things in the life death that I was like, or I guess not really a couple, but there was one thing that I was like, huh? But besides from that, it was also a lot of fun. And the craziest part, you mentioned the SpongeBob thing. So when we got to the end of the first part with Jubilee and all that stuff, in my head I was like, oh, okay, yeah, the episode's over. Like there is so much jam packed in these episodes that 15 minutes feels like a full episode, and then you got this whole other half to go. So that was really cool too. So another one that I really enjoyed this week, just kind of as a whole. Before we start getting into the specifics.
Yeah, I'm trying to look now exactly how long. So, yeah, the Jubilee story ends around 17 and a half minutes in.
Mhm.
So we get like only 10 minutes of life death. Not even. We get 9 minutes of life death.
Mm.
Uh, which is interesting on how they decided to break these up. Um, so I guess I would say so far this is my least favorite of the batch of
Mhm.
new episodes that we've had.
That's fair.
And I think part of it is just the whiplash of going from something so light in Jubilee's story to the whiplash of this romance story in Life Death. And why these episodes weren't just split,
Mhm.
honestly. I'm not sure why. Like, 17 and a half minutes for Motendo. That's close to the 21 minutes the old show used to be. You could just add a couple more minutes in
Yeah.
there and it's a full episode. I saw some people say maybe it's because they were worried about doing an episode like Life Death Part 1 without having mutant powers for 30 minutes,
Mhm.
because overall it's a kid's show still.
Yeah.
But there's ways around that. They could have focused more on Forge's powers, which sound really cool. They could have flashbacks to her being Storm, or uh, because my only big complaint with Life Death Part 1 is that this felt really rushed.
Very
I
much.
mean, he's saying "I love you" 5 minutes in,
That
and
was
I'm
the
like,
thing that
you
I was talking
barely
about.
know her, you
Yep.
know, like you barely know her at this point. I wish they would have spent more time. And this is kind of like the downside of 10 episode seasons, and something I've been harping on for a long time is, you know, getting to know the characters, being able to have these episodes, giving me a full Life Death Part 1 would be great to just see that relationship evolve over 22 minutes instead of 8 minutes,
Yeah.
about is what it was. And then giving me, like, I know some people were probably complaining about the Motendo stuff because it felt inconsequential, right? That's fine. I like filler sometimes when it can be. This is a good bonding thing between Jubilee and Sunspot, and
Yeah.
like their relationship that seems to be blooming here. Like, that's the kind of stuff I like when we have like 20 episodes a season, 13 episodes a season. If we could have just had 11 episodes this
Mhm.
season and had, Life Death Part 1 be a full thing, I think the audience would have been fine with not having mutant powers used for a 30 minutes. I mean, that Life Death Part 1 was so mesmerizing to me because of just the character work between Forge and Storm. So I was like really digging that, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's already over.
Mhm. And they leave you off on kind of a cool cliffhanger with it, like I said, with Adversary.
Yeah.
But I would probably lend myself to believe that it was not so much that there just wasn't mutant powers, but just because I guess the lack of action in general. Like, but then it seems like there's going to be a lot there in the next one in terms of all that stuff. So I'm not really sure. Maybe
Yeah,
it was.
could you have done a supersized Life Death episode instead of two parts?
Yeah.
Or could you have done a little bit of different action in Life Death Part 1? Because like I said, I feel like the thing just moves so fast.
Mhm.
They could have spent a little bit more time on those moments. I don't know. Do you think that this was planned this way? I'm starting to wonder if maybe it was like they were two separate episodes, which is why they have two different titles, and then maybe they were like, you know what, Life Death is too long. Let's put Part 1 at the end of Motendo, which ended up being a little short, and then we'll do Life Death Part 2, starting off with the Adversary stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
that. I'm wondering if it was something like that, because this show usually doesn't have like two segments like SpongeBob, so
No.
it's very weird.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. Another thing that I think it might have been is just they didn't want to have too many bottle episode scenarios where it's like, okay, we have a Jubilee episode, now we have a Storm episode.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
40%, by the time you're done, 40% of your episodes are just focused on one character. So this could have been their way of kind of breaking that up and kind of making sure that every episode felt more Game of Thrones ish, and that you feel like everybody gets their. I mean, not everybody got their spotlight. Obviously, Gene, Scott, and Wolverine, everybody were gone for most of the.
Yeah, yeah.
But just to give more characters than just one the spotlight. Um, so yeah, it could be a lot of things, but it definitely messed with the pacing a little bit. And the "I love you" line just shined a light right on the whole, like, if you weren't sure, like, if you were watching it, you're like, oh, this kind of feels rushed. I don't know. When they say "I love you," you're like, all right, yeah, this is rushed. They've known each other for 2 days. Like,
Yeah.
so
And I'm sure there's supposed to be longer days, right? Like, I'm sure there's supposed to be a little bit more time passing in this, but it was just because we're only seeing 5 minutes of it at that point. You're like, whoa,
mhm.
dude, you're chasing her away. Don't say I love you that fast.
Yeah. Man never watched Hitch. Um,
Yeah. Well,
uh,
because I always thought, I said last week, right? I said, oh, I think it's going to be like an A storyline, a B storyline. And I thought they would be interspersed. Like,
mhm.
okay, oh, Jubilee got past that level 1. And now we flash over to Storm. And then back to Jubilee, but they kind of did it very differently. And I
Mhm.
should have saw it coming with the different titles like that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a giveaway. But all in all, I think we only have one other episode that's like this, the other Life Death, and the rest are all just straight title, right?
I think Life Death Part 2 is just one episode. Yeah.
Oh, is
Episode
it?
6
Oh,
is Life Death Part 2. That's
even
why I'm
better.
wondering if that one ran long and they're like, split it.
Yeah, that
Split
honestly,
it
that
in
might
two.
have been it. Yeah, they might have cut some stuff out of the Mojo stuff too, because it said
Yeah, so tell me sorry, go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say, it felt so. The synopsis says, "Oh, they go through all of the X-Men's greatest missions." There's like
There's 3.
three of them. Yeah, so it wasn't exactly like X-Men. This is your life. So it's very feasible that they could have cut a few out of that and just kind of piggybacked right on with the beginning of this story.
Okay, so I guess tell me about Mojo. You have him in your background there. Are you a big Mojo guy?
He's funny to me. I love him because he was created to be sort of the uh, embodiment of television executives in the X-Men universe. He's basically only focused on ratings. He's got this sort of, I don't know if you call it intergalactic, whatever you call it. He's basically got this network that he runs, and he's all about just getting views on it. It's not very complicated. Like I said, it was made to sort of embody the greed and the sort of gimme of television executives at the time. Um, and so to be able to kind of see that updated in this episode and go the whole video game route so that they could still really touch on that 90s vibe was really awesome.
Yeah, it's a little funny he mentions like pivoting to video games instead of TV
Yeah.
or whatever, right? Like, and that's kind of what some companies have done. Even Disney right now, they just made a deal with Epic Games,
Yep.
as they're pivoting to video games and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, pretty interesting that this was made before that announcement, but it's just
Mm.
funny that it's very similar. Um, I'm not big on Mojo. I thought it was funny though that he had the nip and tuck done, and then he just like bursts out of it anyway. He becomes
And
fat
he's
again.
yeah, he's just fat again. Yeah.
It's like when things are getting real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
Well,
like, oh, I
honestly,
gotta
yeah.
like
That was
stress.
I think that was very much what it was meant to be, like pulling back the curtain sort of thing.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Yeah. Definitely. It was really cool the scenes that we did get of the X-Men's past. We got one that was obviously
Genosha.
Genosha. There was a scene, I forget if this was yeah, this was part of it when they were running through the streets from the Friends of Humanity and the Sentinel. That was the first one.
Yes. Yes, that's the first episode, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah, it was in the first episode. Yeah, I gotta say it was a little weird too. Roberto's like, "No, we're getting chased, and these people are trying to kill us. I can't use my powers. My mom will find out." It's like, all right, come on, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we got what did we get? We got Asteroid X. We got the Wildlands.
Asteroid M. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Asteroid. I say Asteroid. Yeah, yeah. Asteroid M for Magneto. So yeah, we got Savage Lands, not Wildlands. So we got some cool stuff from whether it's comic nods, also some stuff we did see in the original series.
Yeah,
Um,
all of them were from the original series.
mhm, yep. Also, we did see that Magneto was sort of the villain of this. How do you feel about that at this point about Magneto, the in-show Magneto? Do you think they're going to make him a bad guy because they fought him in the Danger Room. We've seen them fight him here, and he's still in the opening credits with the villains. So I feel like either Charles coming back is going to cause him to turn bad again, or him turning bad again is going to cause Charles to come back. But I don't think there's any chance he makes it through the end of this season without going back to being a bad guy.
It's a good question. I would say this season he'll be a hero still.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that they'll have him. I think it'd be lame if he immediately goes back. I think if you have like season 2, which we know that they've worked on, be kind of like the return of Charles and maybe the return of that dynamic. I literally think the only reason he still shows up on the villain side in the opening is because of the nostalgia of them being like, we want to recreate the opening exactly.
They have changed a lot of it though. Like just every week, they've obviously we saw in this week we got Emma and Shaw in the trailer. We got an extra scene of them. Yeah. We saw a scene of Jubilee fighting Mojo from the original season. So they have changed it a bunch. It feels weird that they keep him on there to me.
I think it's because the main part that he's in, right, in the opening is with his old gear is when he is leading them against Charles.
Yep.
And Charles isn't in it right now. So I would say that is just like a generic hero villains going up against it. I wouldn't read too much into it until they, I mean, look, the only thing I can say is I can maybe see the finale just because of what it's called, right? We have a part 3 that is Tolerance is Extinction, which is something that has been said in the show, especially in that episode 2. So that's something that could be, brought up and have him maybe turn. But I don't know. Do you really expect Charles to come back this season? I'm actually surprised they've had the restraint to keep him away for this long, but
I am too. I do think we'll get him back in the finale. I don't really know how yet, obviously, but I don't think they'll go the whole season. Maybe it's like a cliffhanger thing where obviously the main show ended with him leaving, and the first season of this one ends with him, coming back. What did I miss? Not really, but
he comes in singing the Hamilton song. He's like, what did I miss?
Yes. So yeah, I do think we'll get him back in the finale.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. They really have been confusing with selling the whole he's dead, even though we know he's not dead. He just went to the She-Ra Empire to, I forget why, but he went there.
He went there because it was the only way
recovering or something, wasn't it?
Yes, it was the only way that Lilandra could heal him. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I think, and at that point we already know it's been a year since he had passed, right? Like we're in a year past at this point because we know 9 months passed because I almost said Jean, but Madeline had a baby. So I guess it would be around that time if a year and a half if he came back. That's probably enough time to heal him, right? But how do you explain it to everybody that you said he's dead and died at because that's how they kind of got their upper hand again of the sympathy with the public was Charles died at the hands of what they thought was like a mutant hater, right? How do you then be like, actually he's okay, but you still love us, right? Like, I feel like that might cause people to be like, whoa, was this some sort of trick to gain favor with humanity? Could be pretty tough.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of the thing that is the catalyst for all to get people to start distrusting them again. In my head, I was like, was there something the Shi'ar did to kind of to telepathically make everybody think he was dead? Like, using kind of his powers and like doing something there. But then you'd think at least Jean would know, because she's basically the only one that's kind of on that telepathic level as him. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I think we mentioned in one of the last shows that it could be like them intentionally trying to cover it up. But there was a lot of private conversations where they echoed that sentiment too, just amongst each other, which it's like, why would they
Did they say dead or did they say gone? Because I feel like they've done that a lot.
With
Charles gone, so
it could be a lot of that. I forget the exact wording. I think it was like episode 1, honestly, when all
Yeah,
this happened.
we'll have to rewatch it and see if they drop in a private conversation use the word dead.
Mhm.
That's what I really want to know, because I can't recall. I thought maybe the same thing, but then I was like, or did they say gone? And it still works.
Mhm.
Because that is tough, right? Like, you're right. Maybe they did do something where one of them made it seem like they wiped their memory or something, right? Do something like that. We already know Jean actually doesn't have great memory right now anyway,
That
right?
is
She
true.
had something wiped from the Mr. Sinister stuff
So that
because
could
her
be
memories
actually.
weren't valid. Yeah, so it could be
Yeah.
something like that.
Huh. Yeah, actually, now that I didn't even think of that. Yeah, but like it was basically Madeline, and it's tough because you don't really know. They didn't really go too much into Madeline's telekinetic strength as compared to Jean's, and obviously as compared to Charles. So we don't really know if she would have been like telekinetically strong enough to be able to resist something like that if it was like a mass. Like you ought to think I'm dead now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you see Charles like knocking on Doctor Strange's door, and he's
Yeah.
like, "I need everyone to forget."
I'm not doing this again.
Oh man.
But yeah, so I guess we can talk a little bit about they went some more into the nostalgia via photography this week that I really enjoyed that we've seen kind of as a central theme so far in this show. This week we got the X Factor, the '90s version of the team with Polaris
Oh yes,
and
yeah.
our boy Havoc, who still don't know if they're actually going to acknowledge that whole thing. Who else was
Hmm.
it? Wolfsbane was in there. Quicksilver. There was a lot of fun ones. I forget off the top of my head. Multiple Man was in there. So yeah,
Hmm.
it just another nod for us, and I like that they're kind of keeping that as a central theme. Like it's almost the concept of like going through a scrapbook every week. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Every week we're getting these new pictures of classic iterations, things that we didn't even really see in the animated series originally. In the case of the OG suits and all that stuff, at least not extended. I'm sure we got flashbacks and stuff like that. But yeah, that was just another cool little thing we got this week as well. I like that it showed us at least people who aren't too familiar with Forge kind of showed them that yeah he's been around the mutants for a while. It because if you didn't know like X-Men at all, I feel like in the back of your mind, especially after the way this episode ended, there could be a little bit of like, all right, what's this guy's deal? Like
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
says he's with the mutants, but then like Storm finds out that it was actually his technology that caused her to lose her powers, and now he's like backtracking and he's just saying he loves me. Like it was sort of a very kind of sketchy introduction for our boy Forge there. So I feel
Yeah,
like
Forge Forge afterwards goes on Reddit and he's like goes to "Am I the asshole?"
yeah,
Uh
yeah.
it's like I told this girl I love her after I took her powers away, and I'm trying to get her powers back, and people are like, "Girl, leave them. You guys are headed to divorce," and he's
My mother-in-law
yeah.
is not being very supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like just that one image that we saw of him with X Factor, it kind of I don't want to say put the audience's mind at ease because that could have just very easily been a mirage or illusion like we saw that a lot of that whole last scene end up being.
But
So
we saw him in the original series. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
yeah, yeah.
if this
I
is
was
your first time watching
mhm.
it, yeah, yeah.
Yep, I was saying strictly for new watchers who didn't even take the
New
time to watch the original ones. You bums. No, I'm just kidding.
Not real fans. No, it makes me feel bad though that like all these people have pictures of themselves and friends on the walls, and I gotta tell you, Ron, I don't have any of you around my house here.
I know the feeling's mutual, dude. I like right above my bed here. I would love a picture of your face, just right there.
I
First
know
thing I see when I
you
wake
got
up every
you
morning.
got Mojo over there, and you don't have me. That's kind of messed up.
Got to get Giorgio on there.
um, but no, yeah, I just think it's funny that these maybe it's just the type of person I am. I don't have a lot of photos on my wall, but just the fact that like every person we've met has just photos like everywhere. It's
Yeah.
like, here's our entire history right here on this wall.
Yeah. Well, again, it's a thing that is very 90s. Obviously, these days
Yeah,
everything's in
true.
our hand, and this, back in the day, and when you go to your grandparents' house today, you'll still see there's billions of pictures on, not billions, but lots of pictures on the wall and stuff. So again, it's just sort of a representation of the times, if you will.
Yeah. Let's go back to the video game real quick. I think you mentioned having this, playing this game and stuff. One, the Motendo actually looked more like a Sega Genesis, which
Yeah.
is great because I had a Sega Genesis growing up. I did not have a Nintendo system except for Game Boy.
Mm.
But
You didn't have the OG Nintendo either.
no,
Ooh,
mm-mm.
what you know about Duck Hunter?
I had Sega Genesis, and then my next console was a PS2.
Wow, holy crap!
I
Not a
Yeah, I
big
had to
gamer
play
as a kid.
the. No, I was a big gamer. It was my parents didn't have the money to get us consoles, so
Fair.
it was Sega Genesis until I could get a PS2. And I would have like Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, because those were cheaper. I would be able to get those things as a kid, um, but yeah. So me and my dad would just be playing like Sega Genesis all the time, and
Nice.
at his at the place where he played indoor soccer was a little arcade area in this indoor soccer
Mhm.
arena, and they had two games I would play all the time: the X-Men arcade game and the Simpsons arcade game.
Nice.
And those two I would play constantly. He's out there playing soccer. I'm at like probably 6 years old, playing the X-Men beat 'em up game that they had, fighting game that they had on the arcade. Same thing with the Simpsons one. Especially like Bart can just pick up his skateboard and start whacking people with it.
Mm.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Is that not the same game that they showed in this one tonight?
It's not like the same. I don't think it's the same game. It is
So I know there was a couple. I think there was
similar.
one that was more just a traditional like side scroller like player game, and then there was another one that was a 1v1. So I think that's probably the one you're referring to.
Yeah, I can check. Looking up the X-Men arcade game. I think it was like a beat 'em up
Okay.
style.
Yeah, probably. But
It was just called X-Men, yeah, and it has like two joysticks, like four joysticks, but like four sets of buttons. It was like a fighting game.
the classic, yeah. I loved speaking of the game systems. I loved how when they got sucked in, we got the dial up noise from the 90s.
Yeah.
God, gave me PTSD for a second. I'm just going down my list here, thinking of anything else that we really have to cover. Oh, I guess we can kind of talk about what we saw at the end there a little bit.
Yeah, tell me about Adversary. I have no clue who this is.
So,
Looks like a big owl
mhm.
thing.
Well, they take a lot of forms. It's so when Forge was in the army, there was a situation where his team was like sort of pinned down and kind of on their last legs, and he uses his let me think of how to put it in a way that like ancestry, heritage, something like to basically summon this like demonic entity to come and just wipe out all the people that were trying to kill them. And it just kind of stayed here afterwards, and he couldn't really do anything about it. And it sort of follows Forge around throughout the comics a little bit, and like I said, takes kind of different forms. We saw this owl thing. It's a little more humanoid that we tend to see it in the comics, but basically, yeah, it's this demon that has been manifested by Forge that he can't get rid of. So I'm interested to see where they go with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what to expect from Life Death 2. I kind of stayed away from the comics, so I wouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
in case if it ended up being exact, I didn't want to rob myself of experiencing it for the first time through this
Mm-hmm.
show. So
Yep.
we'll see how it goes. I don't know what to expect with that, but that's not actually the next episode.
No, yeah,
So
we
I'm
get
sure
a
I'm sure people will be very upset with that cliffhanger, as our next episode is called Remember It.
What is it?
Yeah, yeah. What am I
That is the
remembering?
$1 million question. I think I had originally hypothesized that it would be another Jean episode in terms of her getting more of her powers
Yes.
back. But I don't know at this point, man, because we have gotten like Rogue, Gambit, Magneto. There's like so many characters that we haven't really gotten a focus on yet. And judging by the titles of, we basically know that the last 3 episodes are going to be very story centric and probably not focus as much on the individual characters as it does the overarching plot of whatever that tolerance is extinction is going to be. Excuse me. Uh, part of me feels like it's got to be something with Rogue and Gambit.
Do you want the synopsis?
Yeah, sure. If it's out already.
Yeah, supposedly this is on IMDb. So we'll see how accurate it is. As Genosha prepares to join the UN, select members of the team head to the island nation to be honorees. Back at the mansion, a behind the scenes press event risks airing the X-Men's dirty laundry.
Okay, so we know that Scott and Jean are away right now. They reference that in this episode. So I'm guessing that'll be where they are at the moment. The behind the scenes press thing, I'm gonna guess that's a Magneto thing. That's like a what are you guys doing here? Like, get out of my house, get out of my swamp, sort of thing. You know?
I was wondering if it's like they're inviting the press in, and maybe one of them picks up on I don't know, some sort of
Could be.
secret.
Yeah, could be. We made, or we didn't make, but we referenced that take of Valerie potentially being Raven. So
Yes.
maybe they show up again at the mansion, and that's where kind of all hell starts to finally break loose. Because this upcoming episode is the halfway mark. So you would expect
Mm-hmm.
what they do in this episode to kind of lay that foundation for the last few, very much in the way that the first one did through that whole Jean Scott baby arc. Uh, so yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all if we got some reveals there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Uh, yeah, because I'm wondering what dirty secrets, dirty laundry they even have. Would it be something like the Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey
Maybe
stuff?
maybe that Charles is alive, covering up that Charles is alive.
True, true. That could be it. Yeah,
If that happens, you heard it here
interesting.
first.
Or second, depending if you read it somewhere else before
Yeah,
before
true.
this.
We only steal our takes sometimes, though. That one was not stolen. That one was
Yeah, that one was off the noggin there.
naturally, yeah, brought into the ether.
And then after that, we have Life Death Part 2.
Mhm.
So yeah, a little break before we go back to probably an episode fully about Storm and Forge. And then, like you said, we'll have like 4 episodes left that are probably starting the path of the finale
Mhm.
and getting, like you said, those last 3 are probably going to be team up focused.
Mhm.
Um, showing that kind of stuff. We're still waiting for Cable to show up, which we know he's supposed to.
Yeah.
Nightcrawler.
Oh,
Nightcrawler hasn't shown up.
maybe. Oh, yeah, huh? Maybe Nathan showing up is the thing that they're referring to, the dirty secret. You know that I don't really think that would be.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be too dirty. Though ultimately they did send him in the future to save his life. So I don't think
Yeah,
he'd be like,
yeah.
you gave up your son. What? I don't think it'd be anything like that. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't really know. The closest thing I could think of again would be Charles.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And I would assume Bright Eyes is the Sunspot episode.
Yeah, that's. Although I was watching a video the other day, I forget who, and they mentioned that Rogue used that phrase "bright eyes" at some point in the first few episodes. So maybe it's her. Maybe it's like a combination of both, like how they it could like double meaning, double entendre sort of thing.
Yeah,
Like
could be.
partly a Sunspot episode, partly because they're gonna have to address that too. They every time he's on screen,
Yeah.
he's like, "Oh, I gotta tell my mom. My mom doesn't know." It's like just fucking tell her, dude, so we can get over this and get you to do some cool stuff. You have awesome powers, and we want to see you use them.
What about the rumor that they're getting new suits at the end of the season or for season 2?
Uh, I don't think they'll be permanent suits. I think the suits that they'll be getting will be like in the sense of how a lot like Spider-Man's big on this. Like when a big fight comes up and there's like a specific thing that they need a specific facet of a new suit for. You know, it's like this suit shoots freaking ice bolts. You know, it'll be one of those things where they kind of get these updated suits that probably look pretty cool. Probably give them the cohesive look more in line with the first class kind of look. But I don't think it's going to be. I don't think they're not going to go this whole season and give us all this great nostalgia and everything that we love about the show to just then go and change every single character's design in the last episode. It's not.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, I hope not, because I like how classic all this looks. Let's not mess with it.
No, yeah, I think it'll be an occasion thing. I don't think it'll be permanent by any means. But I'm interested to see what they do. I'd like to see some cool designs. Give me a who knows? Maybe give me a brown and yellow Wolverine. I don't know. Give me.
I hate that suit though.
Really? Oh, yeah. I love it. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I think it looks ugly. It reminds me of the Cleveland Browns. The ugliest uniform that you could think of.
Fair.
I liked, blue is my favorite color. So seeing the blue, yellow, and black is just exactly what I like from Wolverine.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess that wraps us up. We don't have to spend 45 more minutes talking about this
Although
episode.
we could.
Yeah, we could probably find other stuff. But yeah, so if you want to send us your thoughts on X-Men 97 or on the casting of Silver Surfer in the MCU, you can hit us up at our social medias, which are listed in the show notes on your podcatcher or in the notes below if you're watching on the video. Please like and subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel, or rate and review us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. It helps other people find the show. And what do we have coming up? We have my High Republic Road to the Acolyte series starts this Friday. I'm going to start it this Friday. I've got the episode edited. It's done. We're ready to rock. And then, so if you want to check that out, it's us talking about the High Republic books. I have a special guest on each episode as we build up to the release of the Acolyte on June 4th, where Ron and I will be talking about that over on the Pod Awakens.
Yep, we have we've got that. We've got our Phantom Menace 25th anniversary coming up in a few weeks here. That'll be a lot of fun as well. Just going to kind of go back in, just chat about it. It's, as I've said a million times over on that show, it's my favorite Star Wars movie. So it's another one that we've all got a lot to say about, and we're really excited to kind of dive into it again in a more long form kind of way, as opposed to the just kind of loose form watch along that we did a few months ago now.
And over on DC Elseworlds, we're having a draft with Anthony from Digging for Kryptonite, where we're going to draft our DCU lineups for the Justice League. So make sure you check that out. That'll be dropping later this week as well.
Spoiler alert, I win.
Yeah. No. I mean, we don't know the order yet.
I love the look of genuine disgust on your face when you first heard me say that. They're like, oh, wait, he's kidding.
But yeah, so we will be doing that. That's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, that's probably all I got to plug right now. So thank you all. Right? Nothing else?
Yeah, no, I was thinking, no, we got it all.
We did Ultimate Spider-Man 3. That episode is published. Mm-hmm. Check that out.
Yes. Yeah, that was a really fun discussion, too. Definitely check that out if you've been reading the comics so far. That whole Ultimates universe has been great.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for watching along with us or listening along to us. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time for more X-Men 97.